When I say Alcheme has to start from social, I do not mean, let's build another place where people scroll through posts. The word social has been damaged a little. Today it often makes people think of followers, likes, arguments, algorithmic timelines, and the strange little theater where everyone is both performer and audience. That is not the meaning I want to start from. I mean something more basic, social as the exchange of information between people, a question moving from one mind to another, a reply changing the shape of a thought, a group slowly discovering what it actually agrees on, what it does not agree on, and what is worth keeping. If you remove that from the internet, you do not get a cleaner internet. You get a library where nobody can ask a question, correct a mistake, or build on someone else's half-formed idea. So the real question is not whether Alcheme should be social in the shallow product category sense. The question is whether knowledge can be created without the human exchange that produces it. I want to begin with the internet itself. The internet is often described as an information technology, and that is true, but information does not only sit there like a file on a shelf. Most useful information moves between people. It is asked, answered, corrected, forwarded, argued over, summarized, and reused. Early computer thinkers already saw this. The computer was not only a calculator, it could become a communication device, a way for people with shared interests to think together across distance. Later, the web made that much more visible. Links, email, forums, blogs, wikis, comments, search, and shared documents all lowered the cost of passing thoughts from one person to another. That is why the internet was not merely a publishing machine, it was a communication machine. And once communication becomes easier, social structure changes. People can find each other faster, form groups faster, coordinate around ideas faster, and build knowledge without waiting for one central institution to organize every step. This is also why I use the word information in a very human way. In the internet context, information is not just data. It is often a piece of human attention, memory, judgment, or experience that has found a carrier. A sentence, a post, a diagram, a question, a correction, a story, a warning, a joke. These are not just objects. They are traces of someone trying to make something available to someone else. Human society has always depended on this exchange. A family is held together by repeated communication. A team is coordinated through communication. A company, a movement, a school, a scientific field, and even a country all depend on ways to transmit claims, roles, rules, memories, and decisions. So if Alcheme is trying to preserve how knowledge comes into being, it cannot start only from finished content. Finished content is late. Before the article, there was a question. Before the summary, there was disagreement. Before the concept became clear, people were circling it, misunderstanding it, testing it, and naming it badly. The social part is not decoration around knowledge. It is often the birthplace of knowledge. When I look at mainstream social products, I roughly see three familiar shapes. The first is private or semi-private communication. Friends, groups, chats, communities, and workspaces. This is where trust and repeated contact matter. The second is the public square. Posts, broadcasts, feeds, and open expression. This is where visibility matters. It lets an idea escape its original circle, but it also tends to reward speed, emotion, and performance. The third is forum-like discussion. Topics, threads, questions, replies, and archives. This is where subject matter matters. The conversation is less about look at me and more about let's deal with this thing. Alcheme absorbs something from all three, but I do not think any one of them is enough by itself. A private group can become invisible to the outside. A public feed can become too shallow. A forum can preserve topics but still lose the deeper contribution path. The interesting problem is not picking one format. It is asking what kind of social structure lets valuable discussion become durable knowledge. This is the part that matters most to me. Social has to come before the knowledge object. If we start only from content, we are already looking at the result after life has been compressed out of it. We see the final article, the final answer, the final document. But we do not see who raised the first useful doubt, who fixed the weak assumption, who brought an example from experience, who connected two ideas that looked unrelated. Research on online collaboration, open source communities, and knowledge work keeps pointing to a similar pattern. Large groups can create serious information goods when communication, contribution, and revision become cheap enough. The value is not only in the final file. It is in the process that lets many partial perspectives become something more useful. That is why social is not a distraction from knowledge. It is the mechanism that makes knowledge less lonely. Without social exchange, knowledge management becomes a warehouse. With social exchange, it can become a living workshop. So the product question becomes sharper. If social is only a scrolling feed, then the product optimizes for attention. If social is only chat, then the product may preserve intimacy but lose structure. If social is only a forum, then the product may preserve topics but still miss authorship, lineage, and contribution. Alcheme is trying to ask a different question. What happens if the social unit is not only a place to talk, but a place where discussion can become an artifact? That is why circles matter. A circle is not just a chat room. It is a social boundary where people can gather around a purpose, a field, a community, or a shared problem. Inside that boundary, discussion can happen. From that discussion, a draft can emerge. From the draft, knowledge can crystallize. And if the system works, the path does not disappear the moment the final text becomes clean. This is also why I do not want to skip social and jump directly to knowledge. The knowledge would look more polished, but it would be missing the scene where it became real. There is an important boundary here. I am not saying every product should become social. I am not saying every thought needs a community around it. Sometimes a private note is enough. Sometimes a database is enough. Sometimes a simple document is much better than a group of people enthusiastically making everything more complicated. I am also not saying social automatically creates truth. Groups can be wrong together. Communities can repeat bad assumptions. Public discussion can become theater. A social system still needs structure, memory, moderation, and ways to separate signal from noise. But if the goal is to preserve how people create knowledge together, then social is not optional. It is where the raw material comes from. For Alcheme, choosing social is not a marketing choice. It is a product ontology choice. The basic object is not only the post, and not only the final knowledge item. The basic object is the human exchange that can produce knowledge, relationships, structure, and contribution. One small disclaimer before I go. This is my current thinking, not a permanent profile status carved into stone. If I keep learning and one day I no longer believe this, I will change my mind without opening a new account just to argue with my old self. For now, this is why I think Alcheme has to start from social. Not social as scrolling posts. Social as the basic exchange through which people create meaning together. If this thought felt useful, you can give it a like. Think of it as a small signal in the public square, not a legally binding group chat invitation.